The first epic battle with King Crimson comes to an unexpected end, and Bruno's boys are going to have to make a decision that could cost them their very lives. Get ready to enter the court of the Crimson King, my friends! It's time for another episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Golden Wind. Here's that spoiler warning, you heard it here first. Go watch the episode, come back to this review, it's JoJo time. This was an awesome episode, and definitely I think a turning point for Golden Wind, as everything from this point on is officially going to get kicked up to 11. First, King Crimson. It was introduced at the end of the last episode, it seemed nigh unstoppable, and it all ended with Bruno Bucciarati literally getting a fist through his entire torso. Luckily, even after being basically impaled by someone's hand, Bruno is able to fight back using the power of sticky fingers. But still, King Crimson, when he's fighting against a single opponent, seems to have the extreme advantage in battle. Not only does he erase all the events that happened in the last episode, but he attacks Bruno again by quite literally karate chopping directly through his shoulder and down into his chest. This alone should have killed Bruno Bucciarati, but he still manages to hang on and hold on to Trish in order to get the best of him. And as he starts to literally analyze all of the abilities of King Crimson and realizes that there's only a short amount of time in which he can actually erase time, and he actually uses the environment to his advantage and quite literally rides away on one of his zippers, which I have to say was a really crazy image and something that I really loved. However, while Bruno is able to escape, he has been mortally wounded, and Giorno does manage to run into him, and he tries to heal him, and it looks like he does at first, being able to heal all the wounds inside of his body, closing it all up, and even sort of replacing everything that had been destroyed. The thing is, Bruno's not exactly who he used to be in some senses. There's a lot of weird scenes during this moment that I honestly don't even know what's going on. It's kind of confusing. There's a moment where it seems like Bruno is officially dead. Like, his ghost is quite literally talking to Giorno, and then the very next second, Bruno's just fine. He's just back to normal. But even by the end of the episode, we can see that something's not quite right with him. He's missing a lot of blood, even though it would have been replaced. There's even a scene where it looks like there's a splinter that's going through his finger, but he feels no pain, and there's no blood coming out of his body. I'm not really sure what's going on here, but I think it has something to do with the crazy and almost ridiculous power of King Crimson, which, while is kind of easy to understand, the dude just erases time, is still surprisingly complex in the way that it's actually executed. And while King Crimson is incredibly powerful, if he does fight against multiple opponents, it's only a matter of time before they get the slip on him, and they even figure out who his identity is. There's a scene where basically all of Bruno's boys come in, and that's where King Crimson decides that he's going to have to try and escape, and that's pretty much all we get from him. The rest of the episode gives us the biggest part of the story, which is going to lead into probably the next major arc of the series, where we get to see that Bruno reveals to everyone everything that happened, that he betrayed the boss, that he decided to save Trish, and of course, they're all a little reluctant to go along with Bruno's plan. They know that if you cross the boss, well, you're probably going to get fucked up. And that leads to the part of the episode that I thought was going to be the most obvious, where eventually all of them were going to join Bruno. And pretty much all of them do decide to go along with them, except for one member, and I think that's probably one of the most shocking things about this episode. We get to see that one by one, Abacchio, Mista decides to join, and even Narancia, but Narancia probably had the most development in terms of, like, leading to his, like, decision to want to join Bruno, and a lot of that is because he sees a lot of himself in Trish. Even though they're very different characters and have barely interacted at all, they're both characters who've been abandoned and used by people. He sees himself in Trish, which is why he decides to go along with Bruno's plan. They even almost leave him on the banks of Venice when he decides to jump in the river and start swimming to them. But that's when it leaves us with Fugo, who decides to not join Bruno at all. He decides that he's just too frightened to go along with his plan and would dare not cross the boss, knowing that if you cross him, he's basically just going to put you in an art piece and send you one by one to all of his friends. We've seen it in the past, he doesn't want to have to go through that shit. But I have a feeling that maybe Fugo will return. I don't understand the circumstances behind that yet, but it is a little shocking that of all the members, you know, he's the one who decides to just stay along, especially considering that he had such a strong relationship with Bruno already, but again, his loyalty to the group, to Passione, and to the boss himself, he's just not going to do this. He's not going to try crossing the boss, and honestly, I can't blame him in this situation, and thankfully, his friends don't as well. They don't blame him for staying behind, but still, I kind of hope that we're going to get to see him return, because I really wanted to see his stand again, considering how ridiculously powerful it is. I mean, if he used that against King Crimson, how's he even going to be able to fight back? So what's the rundown on this episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind? A pretty crazy episode that's going to have a massive impact on the story from this point on. Bruno has officially made it clear that they are going to be betraying the organization and going against the boss, which means all sorts of people are going to be going after them now. It's only a matter of time before King Crimson, the boss, ends up sending some of his best people after them, and that's already sort of hinted at the very end of the episode, so I can't wait to see how all of that is eventually going to work. But ultimately, this episode was defined by two big moments. The battle with King Crimson, Bruno being able to barely escape and transforming into a freaking Jedi Force Ghost for a couple of seconds, and then of course Bruno telling the team, you can come with me, but you have to make the decision by yourself. He cannot give them that order personally, knowing that they're basically putting their lives on the line fully at this point. I'm so glad that most of the crew was able to go along with him, but it really still shocks me that Fugo is not going to go along with this plan. Like I said, I still have a feeling that he is going to return and still eventually become a part of the group, but I just don't know how all of that's eventually going to go down. All I know is I loved the moment with Narancha when he finally realized his relation to Trish, and that's why he decided to join. I love the dynamic between all of these characters, and that's why I'm really hoping that Fugo is going to return as well. As for the future, I really can't predict it at this point. I think it's almost impossible to predict JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for how utterly insane it is all the freaking time. I also just loved a lot of some of the crazy visuals that they had in this episode. Well, not so much the visuals, so much it is the characters reacting to the power of King Crimson, as they can actually see themselves skipping forward in time or when time is actually erased, but they have no idea that it's actually going on. I'm really curious to see how King Crimson's ability works in relation to the actual world itself. Not like Zawarodo, but I mean like the actual planet we live on. Like, is everybody feeling these effects? Does it only like happen within like a certain amount of space when he's fighting against his opponents? Can he only erase like time that's like in a certain like spot next to him? Like, there's so much confusion about how these abilities work, but man, I can't wait to see more of it in action. I also gotta say that a lot of the animated moments in this episode just looked really on point and solid, especially watching Bruno fight back against King Crimson in the moment where he escaped by grabbing onto the zipper and it pulled him all the way up to the top of this cathedral. It was really visually awesome. It's just got me so pumped for more of the future. And like I said, there's still some weird stuff going on with Bruno Bucciarati, and I think it's all connected to that scene with the ghost. I don't know, just something about that was really weird, and they put a lot of emphasis on that. I'm not sure why he's not feeling any pain or bleeding. Maybe it is because he lost so much blood, but according to Giorno, like I said, a lot of these things should have been replaced, so what the hell's going on here? It's just really confusing. Also, I do hope eventually we'll get to see Risotto return. A lot of my commenters have said that he will return. In what context is still kind of confusing at the moment, but I'd still like to see him like actually do something because they were building him up for so long, and I have a feeling he'll probably be a part of the next major arc, and I wonder what member of Giorno's team is going to be going up against him. I just really want to see that guy in action. I loved his design and the fact that his powers revolved around metal or nails or something to that effect. All I know is I loved this episode. It's a massive turning point for the series, and I cannot wait to see more of it unfold. I'm giving the episode a 5 out of 5. Another fantastic episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I do ask, and a lot of you are doing this, thankfully, in the comments section, putting like a spoiler warning before the comments, because I know that a lot of you have read the manga version. I have not read the manga of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm seeing all of this for the very first time, and I appreciate all of you that have been putting those spoiler warnings, because I just don't want to be shocked by anything that's actually going to be happening next. I'm really pumped to see more of this, and yeah, that's basically that. But if any of you did watch the episode, please give me your thoughts about it in the comment section below, about King Crimson, Bruno Bucciarati, and his crazy ghost, and if Fugo is potentially going to return in the future. Let's just get a discussion going about this episode. Comment section below. Thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down, baby.